Peace and blessings. I pray everyone is doing well today. Today's post was prompted by what's going on now as I do the post in reference to Mr. Trump's last days in office and the companies that are not only have censored him because of words that he's used, that is being alleged that he helped to incite the riot and the breaching of the Capitol, but also more specifically in him and his family having contracts, their business contracts canceled, and or people just backing away and not doing business with him. Along with that, I'll throw in Mr. or the Senator Hawley, who lost his book deal from Schuster, who said they're not going to do business with you, and the business with him, and those who support these gentlemen and their entities as it relates to the Trump family are calling foul. Like, this is not right. Companies need not do this. They've signed contracts, so on and so forth. This is a dangerous path that we're going down because of use of words and or the alleged of actions based upon the words that um, I'll stop short of saying that they're saying is unprecedented. But it is unprecedented as it relates to a president going through this and having business deals and losing contracts, if you will. But no president has been came into the presidency as a reported billionaire. So, with that being said, all of this prompted today's post that I call "Is It?" So, with that, I would like to point out some things just to let people know that this is not only happening to Mr. Trump or Senator Hawley. There are other individuals and entities who have gone through, or I would say specifically individuals who have gone through losing contracts because of words or actions. First one I want to point out, maybe you guys will remember, you people will remember Public Enemy. And in the 90s, I believe it was the 90s, when because they're a Hall of Fame group, but as they were doing their thing, Professor Griff allegedly made a statement or made a series of statements which caused the ADL and other Jewish watch groups to take offense to it. And to the point where an ultimatum was given to Public Enemy saying, you need to kick him out your group or we will not distribute your records. The records at the time were apparently either owned, the distribution companies were either owned by Jewish people or Jewish companies, or they had influence over the distribution companies. Public Enemy balked, said, no, we're not doing it. So then records were set at the doorstep of Def Jam, which then subsequently had Professor Griff had to exit the group for a period of time. But the point I'm making in reference to bringing them up was because of words, actions were taken in terms of business and canceling of a contracts or, pretty much saying we're not going to distribute, affecting their business. One. Next, from the Nation of Islam, during the 90s, 80s and 90s, Dr. Khalid Muhammad at the time was the national spokesperson for the Nation of Islam, and he would do tours, speaking engagements. And for those who don't know who Dr. Khalid was, because he's passed away, peace upon him, fiery. He was labeled very controversial. He was labeled anti-Semitic with some of his speeches. Now, he, because of his speech, was banned in the state of New Jersey. He could not speak anywhere. So the state government banned him, meaning contracts that he had for speaking engagements in New Jersey were halted. So words, again, caused the action of contracts and business being stopped for Dr. Khalid Muhammad. Next example, Arsenio Hall. Very popular show host, had a late night show in the 90s. Very popular in the 90s. Doing well, provided a lot of opportunity for African Americans, specifically my culture, hip hop. A lot of hip hop artists were able to then be seen on the national and international stage, appearing on the Arsenio Hall show, as well as other guests. So he had a diversity of guests, but he definitely was an avenue for African Americans as well in terms of entertainment, as well as politics and things that African Americans and those who like the format of the show could relate to. Well, he had, keeping with the Nation of Islam examples, he had Minister Louis Farrakhan on. And subsequently, after having the minister on, his show was canceled. It was noted that there were other things, ratings and so on and so forth, that was possibly happening prior to Minister Farrakhan. So it could have been due to the announcement of Minister Farrakhan being scheduled to come on or not. But the point I'm making is that shortly after or subsequently after Minister Louis Farrakhan spoke, show gone. Next example, Mr. Amari Baraka, who a famous poet, very conscious with his product, with his poetry, very poignant in reference to analysis of what had been going on in the country as it relates to African Americans and the greater population as a whole. Well, one of his poems was deemed controversial, and he is from the state of New Jersey. He has passed also. He's joined the ancestors. Peace be upon him also. And at the time of the poem, he was holding the position of poet laureate in the state of New Jersey. Well, because of the poem, he was asked to resign or give up that post, meaning, again, affecting, canceling an agreement of a position. And then I'll just blanket this one. We'll go with our professional athletes, where the professional athletes, along with the contracts that they sign to make their money and play in the professional leagues, NFL, NBA, specifically is who I'm pointing out, they have the code of conduct. And if they say certain things that is too controversial, or looking for the term that they use, I can't think of it right off the top of my head, but detrimental to the league as a whole, they could be sanctioned, lose money, and or have contracts be fired, if you will, contracts canceled. So I'm going to finish with this one, this person, specifically a professional athlete, a football player. And what I find interesting, I'm ending with him, is because it's like full circle from Mr. Trump to him. And you'll see the connection. Colin Kaepernick, because of taking a stance, meaning his actions, which was deemed disrespectful to the country, disrespectful to the veterans of the military, which information shows that it was not. It was, in essence, called genuflecting, which is giving respect to the fallen, because Colin Kaepernick, as you may know, was protesting police brutality and the killing of African Americans and Latinos. So once he became educated on how to do the protests by a former military person who was on his football team with the San Francisco 49ers, he was educated and told, take a knee, because that's what soldiers do when someone has fallen. So you take a knee, it's called genuflecting. So Colin genuflected And because of his stance, he systematically was moved out the league, and which means his contract ended, can't get another contract. His business was affected, which means him being business being as that of a football player, and he has not been able to get a job or land a job back in the league when we know as quarterbacks, he's definitely better than a lot of the starters and most definitely better than the backups that are working. So the reason I put him last is because Mr. Trump was very vocal about Mr. Collins' position and other football players who uh, supported him in his position, saying fire him, use derogatory language, um, speaking about the movement as well as the players. And he didn't just leave it with the football players, but he also did it with the NBA players who also went to show support for African Americans and Latinos who have been victims of police brutality. So I find that this is quite interesting that short memory, like crawling foul, that your contracts or your business is being affected when this has been going on prior to him being president, as well as during his presidency. And one can make a case that him being so vocal and from his position of being the president has affected other people's ability to to conduct business within their profession. And I will finish with this. With all the examples that I gave, all of them, inclusive of the Nation of Islam, the fiery speeches of Dr. Khalid Muhammad, the fiery speeches of Minister Louis Farrakhan, not one member, no one in their organization, no one from the other examples that I gave went out, stormed the federal building, having people die because of their words or their actions. But yet, people are supporting and calling foul because these individuals have lost business and are continuing to lose business, meaning Senator Hawley and Mr. Trump and the Trump family business. And I know I always say lastly, but this will be the last. When one is dealing and conducting business with private companies, they have the right to change within their contract and their business any relationship they have with someone who is supposed to be representing them if they feel that in the representation that it will do damage to their brand. So as the NFL thought that damage would be done negatively to their brand, you saw what had happened to Colin Kaepernick. It was in their right to do it. So if that is the case, then it's in the right of these other companies to cease doing business with Mr. Trump if they deem that the rhetoric that he has stated, the affiliations or associations that are seemingly attached to him, white supremacists, the various organizations within white supremacy, neo-Nazis, and they feel that that will affect their brand negatively, then they, by all means, in protecting their business, can sever ties. Now, people continue to focus on the 70 plus million that voted for Mr. Trump and say, hey, beware of them. You know, that's a large amount. That is a large amount. But there were 80 plus million that voted for Mr. Biden and Ms. Harris. Along with that, in this country, there's an excess of 320 million, maybe 330 million people that live in this country. So these businesses have to keep in mind, yes, they'll keep in mind of these 71 or 70 plus million, but they have to keep in mind of the 80 that did not vote for Mr. Trump, and then the balance, 200 plus million who didn't vote but live in this country. They're also consumers. So they have to keep them in mind too. So I just wanted to share that. Like, is it really picking on? Is it really that this could be a path down the rabbit hole as reference to businesses canceling contracts and distancing themselves to protect their brand? I just gave you examples, and there are a lot more, but I just wanted to show balance. So peace. I will leave you as I greeted you, peace and blessings. One love. Wakanda forever. Laugh a lot. Vitamin D. Rest. I'm out.